watching that. 6:47, time now for a Morning Cup of Joe. And Metro Sheriff Joe Lombardo is joining us live virtually today. Good morning to you, Sheriff. It's great to see you with your coffee.
I don't have a big cup.
Cheers to you, sir. We want to start, Sheriff, if we could, with the past weekend, 4th of July weekend. There were lots of illegal fireworks around town. What other issues did Metro respond to, and did you guys see any problems with celebratory gunfire?
Yeah, there was a lot of fireworks. It was interesting because it was more prevalent, in my opinion, than years past. And I think that's probably because the hotels didn't have the big celebrations or the firework displays that we experienced in previous years. People are sequestered at home. So we had a great deal, approximately 50% more calls for service than we experienced last year. And the fact that the 4th of July happened on the weekend, so that built into the numbers we experienced. 25,000 plus calls brought into the website reference fireworks and people complaining about fireworks. The task force was out in force issuing citations. We only affected one arrest, numerous citations issued. But back to the core of your question, reference gunfire, that happens every year. It's not unique to this year. Over the weekend, we experienced 34 illegal gunshots into the air. People think that's another form of fireworks, I guess. But, you know, what goes up must come down. And, you know, unfortunately, some people become victim of that. But as a result, outside of those type of shootings, we had numerous what we call 415As. That's an assault with a weapon where individuals were shot at, and we experienced 5 victims over the holiday weekend. That may not sound like a lot compared to other jurisdictions that you've seen in the news in other states, but it is a lot here locally.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sheriff, so we know wearing a face covering, of course, now required in public here in our state. Does that cause issues, though, for Metro when trying to identify suspects? Yeah,
that's an unintended consequence of wearing a mask, right? So we try to use all the techniques we have available to solve crimes, but, you know, even the local security is experiencing problems with that. Usually if a person walks into a casino wearing a mask, that's the person you key on. Now everybody's expected to have them. So that's a new hurdle in law enforcement, and we're just going to have to rely on witness statements and other techniques, the way the person walks, the way the person acts, body language, and maybe the ability to track them upon exiting a facility or a location via video cameras. All the techniques we've used in the past is just going to be a little harder, another hurdle that we have to deal with in law enforcement. Fortunately, we're doing okay year to date in violent crime. We're down a significant number, but if you look from when COVID started and to tracking to the days, we're up in violent crime. So, but overall for the year, we're down, but during the COVID, we're up. So we'll have to manage that and monitor that moving forward.
All right, after George Floyd's death, Sheriff, we talked to you. You mentioned you were willing to make changes to policies. What conversations have you had with state and local leaders since then?
I think you're probably making reference to mental health and homelessness. There hasn't been much conversation since my initial presentation at the Board of County Commission, unfortunately, because we're dealing with a special session. So I'm hoping that conversation continues because there does need to be a change in how the police function and the service that is provided to the community. In particular to those two aspects, it's a big deal because it's a big percentage of what we do on a daily basis. And we don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction on how we're going to design that or how we're going to respond to those particular issues. But I think there needs to be significant changes with that for us to be more successful in how we deal with those certain populations. Because year after year, it's becoming a more prevalent part of our daily job. And is that purposely for the police or no? In my opinion, no. It's purposely for people that are more well qualified, that have the pedigree per se to deal with those kind of situations.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned before it's a bit frustrating because you can't, you know, in terms of treatment and stuff, you guys can just do so much. So we'll see what happens there.
biggest part on that, Alex, is when we're called, you know, it's easy to call 911, but when we're called, we can't walk away. That's the important piece for people to understand. And so what is the solution for us? If we can't walk away, more often than not, it ends up being incarceration, and that's not the solution. Yeah. But it's not unique to Las Vegas. It's unique across the nation, and people have been putting their head in the sand, per se, to try to ignore it. And I think we've come to a precipice on this where something has to be done.
Yeah. All right, Sheriff Lombardo, unfortunately, we are all out of time. As always, we really appreciate you joining us. Hope you had a good 4th.
Yeah, barely. Always working, always working.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you have a question for Sheriff Lombardo, you can submit it to us on our website, 8newsnow.com. Find out if your question was answered right here on Good Day Las Vegas every Wednesday. We'll be right back.